Welcome, everybody. I'm so pleased to have you all here today. My name is Gillian Caldwell, and I am USAID's Chief Climate Officer. I also serve as the Deputy Assistant Administrator overseeing the Environment, Energy, and Infrastructure team, amongst other things. So ocean plastics is in my portfolio and close to my heart. First off, my apologies for the delay. We're still awaiting some arrivals, but everybody's got a busy schedule, so I know we're keen to get it moving. And I really want to thank Senators Dan Sullivan and Senator Sheldon Whitehouse for co-hosting this event with us, and even more importantly, for their tremendous leadership to tackle ocean plastic pollution. Senator Sullivan, of course, is here with us, and you're going to hear from him in just a few minutes. I'd also love to thank other co-sponsors of the Save Our Seas Act, including Senator Menendez, who unfortunately can't be with us. And I want to thank all of you for being here today. We've got, between what's happening online here in the audience and on our panels, we have multiple ambassadors, business leaders, major companies, representatives from the NGO community, and officials from across the US government. And you're all here because you're passionate, as I am, about this critical problem. So before we get things going, we are going to hear from Senator Whitehouse, who can't be with us in person, but who, as I mentioned, is a co-sponsor for today's event, and he has a few words for us. Over to Senator Whitehouse.
Hi, I'm Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. Thank you very much to USAID for inviting me here to help launch the aptly named Save Our Seas initiative, which will expand the already impressive work you are doing to implement 14 new country and regional programs. First, I'd like to recognize USAID Administrator Samantha Power and Chief Climate Officer and Deputy Assistant Administrator Gillian Caldwell. I'm certain that your leadership will make this endeavor a success. SOS 2.0 is the most comprehensive marine debris legislation ever passed by Congress, designed to address plastic pollution both at home and overseas. I was pleased to work with Senators Sullivan and Menendez to get it passed, and I'm excited to see this initiative support its implementation. Congratulations also to the Biden administration on your negotiating success in Nairobi, building out a robust solution for the removal of oceans plastics. Our planet's oceans face a crisis, and we need ambitious solutions to meet the moment, to clean up this mess, and to prevent more harmful waste. Plastic isn't just choking marine life, it's leaking toxins into fisheries and even into the food we eat. Recently, a group of researchers reported microplastics in Antarctic snow, collected from remote and seemingly pristine locations. Plastic waste is now truly everywhere. This is not a problem that can be solved by one country alone. Cooperation is key, and USAID's ongoing work in this space has laid the groundwork for even more progress. There is much to do, but with strong existing partnerships and continued real leadership, USAID is well equipped to tackle the problem of ocean plastics. Thank you all for your work.
All right. So the first half of today's program will consist of remarks by Senator Sullivan and Administrator Samantha Power. We will take a very brief break outside. We're going to then shift immediately to the panel, which will be moderated by Assistant Secretary Medina. So we've got to move things along a little bit because we have busy people. So I'll dispense with other niceties and welcome you, Senator Sullivan, to the stage with real gratitude for your support of our work.
Well, thank you, Gillian. And sorry about that, Save Our Seas 1, and then Save Our Seas 2.0. As Senator Whitehouse mentioned, this is the most comprehensive ocean cleanup legislation ever to be passed by the United States Congress. And what's happening now, and it's almost a very clean handoff, that part, President Trump signed those two bills, and now the Biden administration is working with all of us on the core implementation of not only the legislation, but the new initiatives from USAID and the State Department. I didn't recognize Assistant Secretary of State Medina, but she's doing a great job on this as well. So this is literally everybody pulling on the same oar. And that's important. That's how you get things done in this town. That's how you get things done in America. That's how you get things done throughout the world. And I will tell you, from my perspective as Alaska's senator, I'm very interested in this topic for a whole host of reasons. If Senator Whitehouse were here, he would be rolling his eyes because, you know, me being from Alaska, he being from Rhode Island, we kind of have these size jokes that you may have. We're 491 times bigger than they are, but who's counting? But in all seriousness, Alaska, we have more coastline than the rest of the lower 48 combined, right? So we have tens of thousands of coastline in our state, so that matters. We have, we're the, what I like to refer to as the superpower of seafood for America. Over about 2/3 of all seafood harvested in America comes from Alaska. Now, I don't want to get in a fight with the ambassador from Norway, but we think we have the best salmon in the world, but she might disagree with that. So this is clearly important to my state, and clearly important to Senator Whitehouse, Senator Menendez states, Rhode Island's the ocean state. It's important to America, but it's really important to the world. And I think that's where USAID is going to play such an important role on taking some of these ideas internationally. So we had strong bipartisan support in the Congress. We've had strong administration support, starting with the Trump administration, now moving on to the Biden administration. And the other thing that I think is really critical here is we've had strong stakeholder support. So this is one of these issues where environmental groups who focus on ocean sustainability, ocean cleanup, of course, are supporting, but also industry, as they see this as a really important issue that impacts all of us. So some of you may have heard of the group. It's a Fortune 50 group called the Alliance to End Plastic Waste. These are some of the biggest companies in America, globally too. They have literally committed billions of private sector money to implement and help us on our initiatives. And that's why we made the Save Our Seas 2.0 legislation very focused, not just on government, but on partnerships between the private sector, environmental groups, and government. So for example, one of the things that the Save Our Seas 2.0 is doing right now, we have established a Marine Debris Foundation, which is a public-private partnership foundation chartered by the Congress of the United States to make sure we can have a lasting impact on ocean cleanup, but bring in ideas from the scientific community, from the private sector. So that Marine Debris Foundation, we certainly would want, and I'm sure USAID is going to be looking at working with them. They're looking to set up a headquarters. They're still debating it. They had their first board meeting recently. I've been pressing for Alaska for the headquarters, but we'll see what happens with that. But so on the implementation, I think one way to think about not just the legislation, but the USAID and State Department initiative and efforts with our foreign partners is to make sure when you think about this, this is bipartisan, but all stakeholders need to be involved. I think that's one of the most important things to make this successful. It's a great opportunity to work together, to get good ideas from each other, to stretch resources and share those. And I think that's why we in the Congress, in a bipartisan way, are so excited about the Save Our Seas initiative from USAID. Again, I want to thank the leadership at USAID and the State Department and everybody who's put this event together. I think we're off to a really good start. And our states, our countries, and the world are going to benefit. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Senator Sullivan. I am very pleased to introduce our one and only Administrator Samantha Power at USAID for a few remarks before we head into our panel discussion. Welcome.
It is great to be here. Thank you, Gillian, for your leadership and that of your team at USAID. Wonderful also to have Assistant Secretary Medina here. It really is the embodiment of bringing diplomacy together with our development tools, which is such a necessary feature of our actions across sectors, but really you see the impact of that in this sector, and I so agree with Senator Sullivan that we're really only at the beginning. Sadly, we're only at the beginning of the amount of plastic waste. It can get so much worse, but we're also, I think, only at the beginning of seeing the kinds of diverse coalitions that can come together on an issue of this importance. And it's very heartening, I will say, to be up here on an issue that has generated such bipartisanship. This bi-coastal addition of unlikely congressional bedfellows makes me very happy. I hadn't known about the size humor that undergirded, presumably also Senator Menendez gets a little of that as well, but to have the senators from Rhode Island, from New Jersey, from Alaska driving this, and Senator Sullivan, just, thank you for your remarks, for your presence here today. It says a lot, I think, to the folks who've worked on these issues for, in some cases, decades, trying to get attention up on Capitol Hill. And the way you have seized the baton, but also your point about the enlistment of the private sector, and frankly, the connections that so many people have up here on Capitol Hill that can broaden this coalition, because we know that public sector finances, are really important. They're foundational, they're catalytic, but given the scale of the challenge that we are up against, it's going to require bringing in those companies who are showing newfound interest in making a difference on this issue. The fact that the Save Our Seas 2.0 Act passed by unanimous consent, we could start to get used to this. We had the Ukraine supplemental that was passed by an overwhelming bipartisan majority, but to create ambitious legislation that addresses the plastic debris crisis threatening coastal economies and the beauty and bounty of the world's oceans really can, I think, inspire us, certainly inspires us at USAID to believe that we can fight this challenge and that in the end we can prevail by enlisting constituencies that we're only, I think, scratching the surface on at this point. I also want to thank Senators Coons, as you did already, Senator Leahy, Senator Graham, for their work, because notwithstanding the importance of the private sector, the resources that Congress is steadily increasing and dedicating to this crisis is really, really important. And it just doesn't happen by accident. It happens because members of Congress, senators, decide that this is an issue of personal priority for them. And if any of you have been seated next to Senator Whitehouse talking about any other issue, you know that there is no other topic that can hold center stage for long, because the issue of ocean plastics is always one that he is going to turn to. And I know, Senator Sullivan, it has that kind of priority for you as well. Wonderfully, this issue also has really thick support in the countries and the communities in which we work. And that is by far the best predictor of whether we're going to make an impact, is does the energy for this grow out of those communities? So we are really, really grateful for the presence of Ambassador Krutnes from Norway, the partnership of countries who are on the front lines, like Ambassador Albaki of Ecuador. We have Jose Manuel de Gallegos Rumaledes from the Philippines, and of course, Peru's Ambassador Osvaldo de Rivero. The enormous accumulation of plastic debris in the ocean is well documented by now. The images that have been conjured and captured are grotesque. And frankly, I think they're embarrassing. I certainly feel embarrassed when I talk to my 10-year-old daughter about what she pulls off the internet to show the havoc that has been wreaked. Once pristine marine environments, habitats to an unknown number of unique species wrecked and withered. We get a snapshot through these images. We see the sea turtles who have mistaken plastic bags for jellyfish, which is their favorite food. We see whale and other aquatic mammal carcasses washing up on coastlines, their organs lined with abandoned fishing gear, bottles and bottle caps, plastic utensils, small children's toys, bubble wrap, balloons, you name it. I mean, it is searing, some of these images. And we know that roughly 11 million tons of plastic, the equivalent of an entire garbage truck every minute, makes its way into the world's oceans annually. And it is difficult to imagine the damage being done on top of what I've just described when we try to account for the impacts that we cannot observe in such dramatic and measurable ways. And then when we consider compounding factors like the climate crisis and a rapidly growing population, the risks really become near universal. The ocean as a source of life and sustenance and jobs is shrinking along with our coastlines, as the Save Our Seas co-sponsors have long attested. Dwindling marine ecosystems have become even more fragile and hazardous to public health, with more waterborne infectious diseases, harmful algae bloom toxins, contaminated seafood, and other land-based chemical pollutants. And tragically, we risk devastating the abundance of natural life forms that humankind has drawn upon throughout history to combat illness and improve quality of life. Much like a pandemic, the impact of our waste on the oceans does not pay mind to international borders. I'm sure Senator Sullivan of Alaska can tell you just how much of the plastic and debris that washes up on Alaska's shores comes from across the Pacific. This is yet another problem without a passport, right? We have so many of these right now. And just like the pandemic and the climate crisis, the health and biodiversity of our oceans requires a concerted global response. What the US Congress has said by passing the Save Our Seas 2.0 Act by unanimous consent is that we are committed to broadening our efforts to stop pollution at the source. For USAID's Save Our Seas initiative, this means doubling the countries where we have worked for the past 6 years to develop innovative solutions to keep our oceans from suffocating. From 7 pilot countries and more than 25 cities in Asia, Latin America, and the Caribbean, we are now, thanks to you all, able to expand to 14 countries and regions in key geographies that together represent 40% of total global mismanaged public plastic waste. USAID uses its decades of experience partnering with local governments and local communities to incentivize recycling and build a country's capacity to create circular economies for plastic waste. We serve as a catalyst, pooling resources from the private sector and other donors to support jobs, to prevent pollution, and to conserve our most precious natural resource in ways that generate opportunity and economic growth. Take, for example, our work in the Philippines, where people use more than 160 million single-use plastic sachet packets every day for basic items like shampoo and coffee. That's 60 billion plastic packets per year that are difficult to recycle, making them a major source of ocean pollution. Many come from small, family-run convenience stores that are found on almost every city corner. Now, though, sprouting up alongside these stores across Manila City are green container vans that have become community collection points for plastics and other low-value waste. USAID's implementing partner, the Plastic Credit Exchange, works with store owners, communities, and municipalities to create a value chain out of plastic, paying the community members to recycle, to transport the waste, and to process it in an environmentally sustainable manner. Meanwhile, again, to Senator Sullivan's point, corporations like PepsiCo, Colgate, and Nestle pay the exchange to offset their plastic footprint. To date, this network of store owners has prevented over 64 tons of plastic waste from leaking into the Philippines' oceans. And just this year, PepsiCo worked with the Plastic Credit Exchange to expand to 76 locations across the country. In the Dominican Republic, USAID's Clean Cities Blue Ocean program piloted an approach for closing garbage dumps, which are typically poorly managed and leak plastic into the environment, and replacing them with sanitary landfills. Having raised $3.9 million in local public and private investment, our approach is now being taken up by the government of the Dominican Republic in an effort to close and replace 96 open dumps with sanitary landfills across the country. And through an investment of $2 million, USAID and the Development Finance Corporation provided a partial guarantee to impact investor Circularity Capital to establish an investment fund for promising waste management and recycling businesses in key Asian countries. Circulate Capital then leveraged this $2 million guarantee to mobilize $106 million in private capital from leading businesses like Coca-Cola, Procter & Gamble, and Dow. The fund is investing in companies like Treaty Oasis, an Indonesia-based women-owned recycling company that recycles plastic bottles into new packaging and textiles. Circulate Capital's investment will enable Treaty Oasis to set up a larger recycling facility and expand operations to recycle other types of plastics. Having said all that, we know we are not going to recycle our way out of this problem. We just know that. We need to eliminate harmful single-use plastics once and for all. And to do this, we've got to continue to engage governments on national policy concerning plastics. We have to continue to incentivize this private sector investment that both Senator Sullivan and I have emphasized. And critically, we have to work with local actors and communities to identify behavioral changes that can cut down on individual plastic waste. On this last point, I just want to underscore that through this latest Save Our Seas appropriation, USAID will be able to expand its innovative behavioral action research, which surveys households to understand behaviors and attitudes towards single-use plastic and access to alternatives like reusable bags and safe piped drinking water. Evidence-based behavioral analysis of this sort can catalyze what are small interventions, but nonetheless ones that can have long-lasting impacts on a community's consumption, recycling, and waste management practices. With your support of folks up here on the Hill, across the aisle, we are bringing new partners to the table and turning plastic reduction commitments into real results. Fundamentally, we know that replicating and scaling USAID's efforts demonstrably creates value to our ecosystem, our food systems, our bodies, and our streets, value to corporations seeking to reduce their carbon footprint, and value to the communities most impacted by plastic waste, both here in this country and in so many countries around the world. The challenge is massive and the numbers are daunting, but I think we have the right playbook. So many of you have been instrumental in devising it. We have the trusted relationships with ministries and local communities to implement effective solutions. So I am so grateful today as we recommit to combating ocean plastic pollution and celebrate our ability to come together on an issue so very urgent. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Administrator Power, Senator Sullivan, Senator Whitehouse. I know several of you need to leave for another commitment, so it is now my pleasure to introduce part 2 of today's program, which is a panel discussion And to lead that discussion, we've got one of the U.S. government's most fervent champions for the oceans, the person who is leading the charge to negotiate a landmark international treaty on ocean plastics, Assistant Secretary for State for Oceans and International Environmental and Scientific Affairs, the Honorable Monica Medina. Secretary Medina, please join us. And I'd welcome all the panelists to the stage. She will be introducing you.
Sorry, we weren't sure exactly how the room would be set up. Hi, I'm Monica Medina. Let me introduce the panelists really quickly because I know we have one who has to leave. So I'm not even going to give them long bios because I think you can Google it and figure it out. Let me just quickly go through our lineup here, which is a wonderful group of experts. And thank you for being here in person. Thank you for those watching online. So first, let me introduce Ambassador Annika Krutnes, who's the Norway ambassador to the U.S. Next, I'm not even sure because I haven't met the panelists myself. Are you? Caroline. Carolyn Berson, Senior Director of Strategic Engagement at PepsiCo. Then we have Andres Garrido, Minister Counselor of the Embassy of Peru to the United States, and Claire Romanek, who is the lead ocean plastics advisor at USAID, and it's a wonderful group of experts. And I want to just quickly recognize the ambassador from Ecuador here as well. And let me quickly then turn over to Ambassador Krutnes, who has to leave in a few minutes, and let her make her remarks, and then I'll ask her a question, see if anyone in the audience has questions, and then we'll keep going through the panel, if that's all right. Ambassador Krutnes.
Thank you. Is this the kind that if I just start talking, it will come on?
Let's see.
Can you hear me on this? Yeah, perfect. So thank you so much, Monica, for this introduction. So we are so pleased to work together with USAID on this. Senator Sullivan described Alaska. I will not say that we have the same coastline as Alaska, but we do have a very long coastline, and we live from the sea, and plastic pollution is, of course, a big worry to us. And exactly as the administrator described, the plastic pollution floats up to our Arctic waters as well. Norway is, we live from the sea. We've always lived from the sea. And I just have to respond to Senator Sullivan's joke about salmon. Norway produces enough seafood for putting on the table 42 meals of seafood, 42 million meals of seafood every day. So we actually to contribute to feed the world, to put it like that. And therefore, we are so concerned about plastic pollution. We know that about half of plastic waste produced globally is expected to end up in landfill. We also know that only a fifth of the plastic is expected to be recycled. And there is also an estimate by the OECD that plastic consumption is set to triple by 2060. And already today, we have 460 million tons per year of plastic pollution, and that is set to triple if we don't do anything with it. We are so pleased to work together with the USAID on this project because working with a big partner as the USAID allows us to use our expertise, but with a big partner and a big player who is also able to engage private enterprises in this. Our experience is that USAID is excellent on innovation and on engaging private sector, on being creative, and we need all of that. and then we have a lot of expertise, and we also set aside a lot of money through our development agency, and I think that together we can do a lot of good. So thank you.
So, Ambassador, I know you have to go, so I'm going to ask you a question now, and then we'll go on to the rest of our panel, and you can slip out whenever you need. So, as I think it was the administrator mentioned, and Gillian mentioned, we're negotiating a big new treaty on how to deal with plastic pollution all over the world. And one of the things we're counting on is innovation by countries to spur the kind of new ideas and thinking that we need in order, systems change thinking that we need in order to make the kinds of corrections to our current system that will make it possible for us to eliminate plastic pollution. So I'm wondering if you have some thoughts about what works in Norway and what you're seeing as new innovations in your country that we can share.
Absolutely. So I, although I am a diplomat, I sometimes have to say the truth. So I was a bit shocked when I came here from Norway to see all the plastic, because we actually use much less plastic for wrapping food, and we don't have plastic shopping bags and all this. We drink tap water. Tap water is best quality. So all these plastic bottles from water, we don't see it. But if we have bottles with soda things, we recycle it. So we have a recycle ratio of 98%. You pay a fee on your bottle when you buy it, and then you get it back when you go to the shop with it. So, and we have these machines, Tomra, the Norwegian company that makes recycling machines. So I think that is an innovation that works well. And of course, we ban a lot of single use, like the straws, and like the, you will never go to a hotel in Norway and have breakfast served on plastic or even paper. We always use porcelain. I mean, this one use only products is something that we have banned. Those are a few of the things we do, but I'm sure there's so much more that can be done if you're just creative and innovative. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I know, having visited your country, that it is quite good about the number of plastic items. You just don't see them anywhere, whereas here in our country, I think our recycle rate is about 6%, and it's gone down. The world average is, I think, about 9%, which is a terrible thing when you think about it. Think of all that waste. So thank you, Ambassador. I'm going to let you slip out if you need to now, because I know we're on a tight
I have
schedule.
like 300 people coming to my house in half an hour.
Well, so we'll let you go.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for
all of
being
you.
here. Thank you, of course. So next I want to turn it over to Carolyn Berson, who's the Senior Director of Strategic Engagement at PepsiCo. And I want to say one thing before giving her the floor, which is that one of the things that's so incredible about working on this issue, and all of our speakers have recognized this fact, which is that what you see up here is a variety of people from different points of view, from places in society that might not always agree or that might not work together so closely. But on this issue, our arms are joined, we are working closely together, and we are completely aligned with the goal of eliminating plastic pollution all over the world. So I think when I and others work on this issue, we're blessed because we have such a unity of sort of vision of where we want to be in the long run, which is to eliminate plastic pollution. So, and we couldn't be doing that without bottling companies, without companies that provide beverages and all kinds of other food and other products like PepsiCo. So let me turn it over to you, Carolyn, to talk about what you all do.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and it's such a pleasure to be here and in person too. It's so much more impactful when we're able to do this live. And it's been so great to hear about the comments made by other wonderful stakeholders here today. Exactly to the Assistant Secretary's point, it's so critical to have stakeholders from across the value chain and from government, from NGOs, and so forth engaged in this type of conversation. And I just wanted to share as well that at PepsiCo, one of our big visions is to kind of build toward this world where plastic never becomes waste in the first place. And so one of the things that we're really looking at is making sure that we're kind of achieving this goal by reducing the amount of packaging that we use in our products, by ensuring that more is recycled and available for reuse, and then also reinventing packaging and thinking about ways that we can expand the models that we use, like reuse and refill, and also what types of new materials we can use, like compostable and paper products and so forth. And so, again, it's really delightful to be here with you all today, and thank you for the opportunity to provide some comments.
So next, let me turn it over to Andre Garrido, who is the Minister Counselor from the Embassy of Peru here in the United States. And I think it's fair to say that there is no country that has a monopoly on good ideas or innovations. And we are very grateful that Peru has played a very strong and leading role in the negotiations thus far to get this plastic agreement underway. They've been a wonderful partner to the US government and really a wonderful leader in the world, and particularly at the UN Environment Assembly, where we started off on negotiating this agreement. And we're only just beginning, but I know Peru will continue to play an incredibly important and leading role. So let me turn it over to you to make some remarks, Minister Counselor.
Thank you so much. I'm really, my pleasure to be here also and to share this distinguished invited panelists. As you know, Peru is a maritime country, and with more than 3,000 kilometers in the long coast. And for us, it's very important and priority to save our seas also. So for us, it's extremely important to consider measures to address pollution not only in the seas, but also in rivers and lakes, because all are connected, really. And with a comprehensive approach from the source, promoting the participation of relevant actors, stakeholders like PepsiCo or others. And we are really appreciate, and I want to express the Peruvian government gratitude for USAID for all the cooperation that we are receiving. It's a long relationship, more than 60 years relationship with the USAID and Peru. And with this kind of project that we are talking about now, the impact is we can gain great benefits for thousand people in Peru, mainly in the coast cities. Thank you.
And last but not least, I want to recognize Claire Romanek, the lead ocean plastic advisor at USAID. And I know that we've talked about the importance of bottom-up approach in finding solutions, and the work that USAID is doing on the ground in now 14 countries on the programs that they administer, which are a couple of different ones. So anyway, very exciting to hear about this new expansion. And please tell us a little bit more about the work that you're doing.
Sure. Thank you, Monica. So in 2016, when USAID started working on this challenge with the Municipal Waste Recycling Program, we provided grants to local organizations. And with grants to 30 local organizations in 4 countries, we created a laboratory of learning. What works, what doesn't work, what could work. It also confirmed the essential role of local organizations, because we need local organizations that are grounded in the community to be able to create sustainable behavior change. We need local organizations that have built trust over years trust with informal waste collectors, who are really a vulnerable population and also are the backbone of recycling in the developing world. Now, in 2019, when we were beginning Clean Cities Blue Ocean, we knew that we wanted to keep that element of locally led development. But we also wanted to layer in the capacity building of cities, city governments in particular, because all around the world, municipal governments are responsible for solid waste management. But in developing countries, cities are lacking the money, they're lacking the proper equipment and infrastructure, and the know-how. And under Clean Cities Blue Ocean, what we're finding is that if you start to build the know-how, you start to improve the system. And that creates a signal for the private sector. Aha, this is interesting. I can invest in the recycling sector in this city. So this happened just in April when finally we're getting able to travel. Senator Sullivan mentioned the Alliance to End Plastic Waste, a coalition of many companies, including PepsiCo. Well, they were able to come and see where we're planning a materials recovery facility in Metro Manila in Philippines. And they were like, yes, we get it now. We understand how the mayor and all the staff there are really better able to manage their waste and how they want to be a part of that. Now, with the Save Our Seas initiative, we're going to be even more ambitious because we also really want to engage on policies for increased circularity. Last month, we had a great roundtable, virtual roundtable, with people all over the world, NGOs, academia, private sector, and governments, to discuss what are the challenges of extended producer responsibility as a policy. How can you implement that in low and middle income countries? Because there really is an experience in that. And from that discussion, we want to create, continuing cooperation on this issue because this is really key. If we get extended producer responsibility right, we're going to bring to the table the resources of producers, the resources of the private sector channeled into improved recovery and recycling. And then if we do the policies right, we can also incentivize reduce and reuse, not just recycling. We all know there's far too much single-use plastics out there in the market. And if we want change, we need to create incentives for the business sector for increased circularity in product design and in their business model. So it was really great to hear, Carolyn, how PepsiCo is thinking about the refillables and other ways to reduce, to make sure that there is not as much plastic out there that could leak into the environment. And so with these three pillars of working on incentives and policy for circularity, building the capacity of cities, and that locally led development with support to local organizations, I really think that USAID, through the Save Our Seas initiative, is going to be able to contribute to transformational change and really help end plastic pollution. Thank you.
Okay, so we are very short on time, so I'm going to take moderator's prerogative and ask you each to answer one lightning roundish question. So here's the question. What makes you worried at night about plastic pollution, and what gives you hope about ending plastic pollution? Let's start with you, Carolyn.
But no, it's such a critical one and one that we should be focusing on so much. And so I think one that gives me a lot of hope is the role that companies like PepsiCo can play in helping address some of these challenges. And we can do this, and I appreciate the comments that my colleague from USAID was making in terms of our scale, our influence, and also the role that we play in the value chain. PepsiCo has made a commitment publicly last year to increase the use of recycled content to 50% of the total plastic packaging globally by 2030. And this type of change creates a powerful demand signal to the markets of the value of recycled package. And for us is really critical to these infrastructure changes that are required to help support the buildup of collection, sortation, and also processing. And I think what's great is that, you have companies like PepsiCo, again, making strong progress against these goals. Already in 22 markets, we're using 100% recycled plastic bottles for select brands, including Pepsi. And so we have this important role to play, as an individual company, and we can set and work toward ambitious targets and the recyclability of packaging. But I think the challenge and the thing that doesn't quite keep me up at night, because we have amazing platforms like this and opportunities to come together and discuss, but it's just the importance of systematic change and the need to work closely together with peers in the industry, with companies across the value chain, the plastic value chain in particular, and other stakeholders. And what's amazing is that we have this partnership with USAID. We have incredible groups like Circulate Capital and the Alliance to End Plastic Waste, which have both been discussed at length today. And I think this really incredible moment to kind of have this shared goal around circularity, to work together, to be collaborative and innovative. But it's such a pressing challenge as well. And so while individuals can act and we can all partner together on this shared goal, there's of course the need for progress moving forward. And so that perhaps is the thing that keeps me up at night.
It was mentioned, I think it's good policies and strategies is a key element. No, in case of Peru, as you know, Peru is in a correct path. Peru has been making good progress and important efforts to address pollution by plastic waste at the national level, but also in international level. On national level, for example, we are elaborating or developing technical regulations at the execution of the various activities to promote more sustainable consumption and production of plastic, as well as international level through the diverse participation in agreements and conventions and working groups. For example, in the current times, it should be noted that during the last 2 years, Peru has shown a global leadership role in the fight against plastic pollution, with the elaboration, together with Rwanda, of a draft resolution on a global agreement which was presented in the 5th United Nations Environment Assembly, and result in adoption of the resolution to put to plastic pollution, to put an end to plastic pollution toward an international legally binding instrument. On the other hand, at the national level, and previously mentioned, various instruments initiatives carried out are identified to promote more sustainable consumption and production of plastic, and contribute to the comprehensive management of plastic waste, and minimize and prevent the negative impacts on the environment, and promoting the transition towards the circular economy of the plastic value chain. So another example of the correct way is to work with partners and stakeholders interested to change really habits and the consumption also in population. For example, this project in Clean Cities, Blue Ocean in Peru is developing in 3 coastal cities in Peru. Piura department, cities in Paita, Mancora, and department of Ica in the Pisco City. So then the close relationship between the agency, the USAID, with the Peruvian government and local authorities is a key element. I really would like to highlight the willingness and the engagement and the commitment of the Peruvian people, the Peruvian authorities, to work together. This is very important to get the success.
Claire, over to you.
Trends in plastic consumption, especially in countries like India and in sub-Saharan Africa, where plastic waste or waste in general is often burned or open dumped. So that's just a crisis of human health, as well as to the environment. And that worries me so much, because these are regions that are rapidly urbanizing and not prepared to deal with this challenge. But what gives me hope is that with the Save Our Seas initiative, we do have resources to start working in these countries. And I think we've shown, like through Clean Cities, Blue Ocean, how we can have very concrete solutions in collaboration with the private sector. And so I think we're going to have so much more private sector resources channeled into the solutions, and this collaboration is going to make a big difference in these countries. And so I'm looking forward to these new geographies, as well as working in the countries where we're already working. We're not going to forget you. Thank you.
So let me just quickly wrap up by, I'll toss it back to you, Gillian, in a minute, but just to say how grateful we all are, I think, for the support we find in the Save Our Seas bill and the work that you all do here in Congress. It's really, really important to us, and that kind of support, both the kind of support we get from legislation and the support we get from the funding that you provide, makes a huge difference in our ability to tackle this enormous problem. But it gives me a lot of hope when I see how bipartisan this issue has been, and you could see that on display here tonight. So it is, I think, daunting, but we have a lot of reason to believe that we can tackle this problem. And this will be, I hope, the beginning of the end of the scourge of plastic pollution on this planet. So thank you very much, Gillian. Let me turn it back over to you. And thank you to the panelists very much.
I'll keep it brief because I know we're a few minutes past time, but I thank you so much, Assistant Secretary Medina, and the panel, and Senators Sullivan and Whitehouse and Administrator Power. Senator Coons was even here early on, hoping to be able to stay, but he had to run off and chair an ethics panel. You know, it's really been a fantastic event. And I think what gives me hope is that the programs we're launching today with the Save Our Seas initiative, with this initial funding of $62.5 million, cover 40% of global mismanaged plastic waste. And through the three pillars that you articulated, Claire, you know, the first of the incentives and the policy that are so critical, as Administrator Power mentioned, to get to that circular economy, to get beyond single-use plastics, because recycling is important, but it is absolutely not the solution to the problem. It's a portion of the problem. Secondly, building the capacity, you know, the know-how, the funding, and the technical capability in these critical cities, which are growing every single day and where the use in plastic is expanding. And finally, the importance of that locally led development, you know, the waste pickers that are so critical to ensuring recycling actually takes place, and whose lives and livelihoods depend on the continued, you know, progress in that terrain. I'm hopeful that we're here today launching this program. I'm hopeful that we have a champion like Assistant Secretary Medina in the State Department, and so many allies around the world who will work with us to get the strongest possible treaty to tackle this tremendous problem. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming today.